Centuries of systemic racism have created a wealth gap in America between black and white Americans. In her latest New York Times piece, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Nikole Hannah-Jones writes, if true justice and equality are ever to be achieved in the United States, the country must finally take seriously what it owes black Americans. MSNBC correspondent Tremaine Lee interviewed Nikole Hannah-Jones in his latest Into America podcast on reparations. Tremaine joins me now. And Tremaine, what are the factors that Nikole talked about here that are contributing or have contributed to the racial wealth gap in our country?
Hey, Allison, more than just contributions, the actual source, the root of the wealth gap goes back to shortly after emancipation, when the entire, enslaved population, formerly enslaved population, really were pushed out with absolutely nothing, starting from ground zero. And even though the government had promised some restitution in 40 acres and a mule, those promises fell through. And in fact, the former, plantation owners were given back that land that had been promised to enslaved people. But then after that, decades and decades of Jim Crow laws, lack of access to jobs, depressed housing values, on and on, up from after emancipation through Reconstruction, redemption, into the 50s and 60s. All of these contributing factors, including the actual violent dispossession of wealth, the actual bombing of Black Wall Street, the actual burning and looting of Black communities all across the country. And that land and that wealth and resources were never returned.
So how do we begin to close the gap between black and white Americans, and what would closing that gap mean for black Americans, their future, their economic security?
Well, part of the issue has always been that black folks haven't been able to accumulate the wealth and then pass it on, like buying a house and then passing it on to your children, or taking the equity out of that and passing it on. And so Nikole Hannah-Jones argues that there is only one solution, and that's restitution or reparations. Let's take a listen to what she has to say.
So when you ask, what are reparations? The root of reparations is repair. It is to fix what was broken, to replace what was lost. That's really the only way I can describe it, is we know that this wealth gap was systematically created and endorsed at the highest levels of the federal government. And yet, when it comes to fixing it, we all just want to shrug our shoulders and say, oh, that's tragic. It's a tragic history, but there's nothing that can be done. Well, there is something that can be done, and it's called paying restitution.
Now, a bill has been introduced in Congress every year for the last 30 years. And right now, H.R. 40, just to study reparations, what it could look like, who could receive reparations, and just a full accounting for the extent that wealth has been stolen, stripped, and denied black folks in America, but still hasn't gone anywhere.
Tremaine, I know you said that bill would look into how this could work, but do we have any sense of how the government would determine who would be entitled to reparations?
So at least in Nikole Hannah-Jones and, economists like Sandy Darity, they say you would have to track be able to track at least one descendant in your family back to enslavement, right? But also for the last 10 years before any bill would be put forward, that you've been claiming that you're actually black. So you can't just take a DNA test, discover you're 1/16 black, and then apply for reparations. You'd have to be identifying as a black American and also trace back at least one ancestor back to enslavement.
Tremaine, another fantastic podcast. Always love having you on to talk about them. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Allison.
All power and glory to YaHaWah, BaHaSham, YaHaWaShi, BaHaShem, Qadash. Double honors to the apostle and elders, a great millstone to teach well and rule well, who taught me this truth. Peace and salutation to the Akim, the fellow laborers, the hopeful elect, pushing this truth at risk of their own lives throughout the four corners of the earth. And to the Akwith listening and learning, Shalom. It's your brother Shema from the Pillars of Benjamin Camp here in Toronto with another lesson. And through the Spirit and power of YaHaWah Shai, the title of this lesson, Seeking Vain Help, right? And as our people, Israel being a people before a place, right? But we saw the little video clip. That video clip was attached to this article. NBC News. Joe Biden could send a message to black Americans, so-called black Americans, with this reparations bill, right? The bill is HR 40. Experts say the HR 40 reparations bill could be an early test for President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. A bill reintroduced in the House this week to create a commission to examine reparations for the so-called African American descendants of slavery is being seen by many as an early test of President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's proclaimed commitment to tackling structural oppression. The commission of 13 people will be tasked with examining the history of slavery in the United States and the systemic racism that resulted, including federal and state government's role in supporting it, and recommend appropriate remedies to Congress. The bill, known as HR 40, was reintroduced Monday by Republican Sheila Jackson Lee, a Texas Democrat. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, a Texas Democrat. Given the role that black people have played in the election, getting him nominated and saving his campaign, there's no reason they shouldn't support this bill. Mary Frances Berry, a professor of history at the University of Pennsylvania, said of Biden and Harris, "This is one of the best ways to make good on their promise to attack systemic racism and white supremacy and elevate the economic and social condition of so-called black people." Listen, man, I'm not going to get into the rest of this article, right? I'll leave it in the description box. But vain help. Listen, reparations aren't gonna. The only thing that could save the Israelites, Israel being a people before a place, is YaHaWaShi, man. Right? Right? Vain help. Let's get some precepts, man. Right? The only thing, a matter of fact, right? And this is all the curses, man. Right? This is all the curses. It's all the curses. Revelation 22. Salakia. Revelation 22 verse 3, and it reads, "And there shall be no more curse." Right? No more curse. "But the throne of the Most High and of the Lamb," right? YaHaWah, YaHaWaShi, the Father and the Son, shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him, beginning with the elect. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads. Right? The laws will be written in our inward parts. Right? So when YaHaWaShi comes back, that's the only time there's going to be no more curse. But until then, man, these curses are going to pursue us. Deuteronomy 28 verse 43. Deuteronomy 28 verse 44. And it reads, verse 43, and it reads, "The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high." That's these other nations, man. All these heathen nations are above the Israelites. Israel being a people before a place. Right? The Israelites are oppressed. Right? "And thou shalt come down very low." Right? We're low. We're at the base. We're at the bottom. Verse 44. "He shall lend to thee." Who shall lend to thee? These other nations, primarily Esau, Edom, the banking families, the banking elites, the wicked. "And thou shalt not lend to him." Right? We don't have nothing. We don't own no banks, no bricks and mortar. It's not us. "He shall be the head." Right? Who's the he? These banking elites, wicked Esau, Babylon the Great, America the Great. They're the head of everything. "And thou shalt be the tail." Right? Israel being a people before a place. The tail. So reparations from Esau, Edom, from the wicked, from these governments, that's not going to save Israel, the nation of Israel. Israel being a people before a place. The so-called indigenous, the so-called Latino, the so-called Negro. Right? These curses are on us to destroy us till YaHaWaShi comes back. Verse 45. "Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee," upon who? The Israelites, "and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed." Right? This is real time. This is current. Because thou hearkenest not, didn't listen unto the voice of YaHaWah, thy power, right? Didn't listen to his law, statutes, commandments, went after idols, doing abominable things, learning the way of the heathen, right? To keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. Didn't keep none of it, man. Right? And that's why we're in the condition we're in. Right? The curses, man. Right? 2/3 of our people, they don't understand this. Right? Us in this truth. Right? Most High willing, we're of the elect, we're of that number. We understand this. We understand that this is what the Most High did to us. And we understand that nothing that wicked Esau, nothing that these banking elites do is gonna fix things or save us or make things better. Reparations. Reparation. Reconciliation. Act of repairing, restoration. Repairing or mending. Right, the only thing that's going to repair the Israelites, Israel being a people before a place, is YaHaWaShi. Plain and simple. Right? Right? And we know Esau, Isaiah, Psalms 83, his mission is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Psalms 83 verse 4. They have said, come, who have said? These banking elites, the wicked, Esau, Edom, right? The rulership of this kingdom, right? They have said that along with these other nations, the Moabites, the Ishmaelites, the Ammonites, all these other nations are against Israel. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. So that's their mission. Cut off Israel from being a people, from being a place. Cut them off from knowing who they are. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, right? And that's their mission, man. That's these other nations, along with the wicked, Esau, Edom. That's the mission, man. Cut off Israel from being a people, from being a place, from being a nation. No remembrance. For they have consulted together, these other nations, along with wicked Esau, have consulted together with one consent. What's that one consent? Destroy the Israelites. Not let them know who they are. They are confederate against thee. They're confederate against who? The Israelites, man. You see me? Right? So, thinking that, 2/3 of people are going to get duped and think, oh, this is good. This Sleepy Joe guy is going to bring in reparations, right? Lamentations 4 verse 17. As for us, who's the us? The Israelites. Our eyes as yet failed for our vain help, right? Vain help, man. It's not going to come. Our eyes failed waiting and watching, right? In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us. They can't save us, man. Their only mission is to destroy us. You see me? They have no desire, none whatsoever, to help the nation of Israel, to make it better for them, right? And 2/3 of our people are just gonna line up, right? They're just gonna line up, right? And even listen, hypothetically speaking, let's play the advocate here. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, reparations were to come. It's going to come with a clause, man. You're going to have to take that chip. You're going to have to take that jab. Isaiah 30 verse 1. Woe to the rebellious children, saith YaHaWah, that take counsel, but not of me. Right? Taking counsel on what? The system. Right? Not taking counsel in the Most High, YaHaWah, BaHaSham, YaHaWaShi. And that cover with the covering, but not of my spirit. Right? Nothing to do with the Most High BaHaSham YaHaWaShi. They cover with carnality. They cover with this carnal system. Babylon the Great, America the Great. They put their trust in that, right? That they may add sin to sin. Here's the point, verse 2. That walk to go down into Egypt, right? Egypt, Babylon the Great, America the Great, spiritual Egypt, spiritual Sodom. 2/3 of our people put their trust in this, man. And have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, right? They don't ask. They don't lean on the Most High BaHaSham YaHaWaShi. They lean on the strength of America the Great, Babylon the Great, Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt, Babylon the Great, America the Great, putting their trust in this, right? 2/3 of their people are gonna buy into this. Oh yeah, reparations, man, right? But even if it was to come, man, it's gonna come with a clause, some fine print. Take that jab, mark of the beast. Revelation 13, pursuant to Revelation 13, verse 3. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, right? The strength of America, Babylon the Great, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. Trusting in America the Great, the shadow of America the Great, Babylon the Great, will be your confusion and your shame. I pray edified. I don't want Ratazah. Stay prayed up, pray without ceasing. Kwame Asherala. Wa Abad Babal.